You step outside in the middle of January. You pull your thick winter coat tight against your chest. The freezing wind bites at your exposed face as you hurry across the icy pavement. You quickly rush into a heated car. Why wouldn't you? For 99% of human history, there was no heated car waiting. There was no thermostat. There was no escape. For roughly 300,000 years, winter was not an inconvenience. It was an apex predator. Today, you view the cold as a temporary discomfort that you can simply turn off with the push of a button. But for your ancestors, winter was a brutal, relentless gauntlet that tested every single limit of the human body and mind. How exactly did a hairless, tropical ape survive the most unforgiving climates on Earth? To understand this, you have to look at the Ice Age. The Pleistocene epoch was a time when massive glaciers, some over a mile thick, covered huge portions of the globe. Temperatures routinely plunged to 40 degrees below zero. The wind was a constant, howling force. The landscape was a frozen desert of tundra and ice. It was a world that actively wanted to kill you. Yet, human beings did not just survive here. They thrived. Your first line of defense was your own flesh and bone. Let us look at the Neanderthals, our close evolutionary cousins who dominated Ice Age Europe. Paleoanthropologist Milford Wolpoff has spent decades studying their skeletal remains. His research reveals that the Neanderthal body was essentially engineered by evolution to be a walking furnace. They had short, stocky limbs and massive, barrel-shaped chests. This body type minimizes the surface area of the skin relative to the body's overall volume, which traps heat inside the core. It is a biological principle known as Bergmann's rule, and it kept their internal fires burning. But biology alone was not enough to survive the deep freeze. Anatomy can only take you so far when the air temperature can freeze exposed skin in minutes. You needed technology. You needed clothing. But ancient human clothing was not just a crude animal skin draped over the shoulders like a primitive blanket. It was highly engineered survival gear. Consider the archaeological site of Sungir in Russia. This burial site is roughly 32,000 years old. When archaeologists carefully excavated the graves, they found something astonishing. The skeletons were covered in thousands of tiny, hand-carved mammoth ivory beads. These beads were not just dumped on the bodies. They were originally sewn onto tailored leather garments that had long since rotted away. The precise alignment of the beads allowed researchers to reconstruct the clothing. Your ancestors were wearing tightly fitted pants, tailored shirts, and closed shoes. They were wearing parkas with fur-lined hoods to protect their faces. They achieved this by inventing the eyed needle. A simple sliver of bone with a hole drilled in one end changed the course of human history. It allowed early humans to pierce tough animal hides and stitch them together tightly, sealing out the deadly wind and trapping a layer of warm air against the skin. Without the bone needle, humanity would have frozen to death. But even with the warmest clothes, you cannot survive the winter by standing outside. You need shelter. You need a home. So let us reconstruct a day in the dead of a Pleistocene winter. You wake up in absolute darkness. The air outside is 30 degrees below zero. The wind is screaming across the open tundra. But inside, you are warm. You are lying in a dwelling made entirely of mammoth bones. At the site of Mezhirich in modern-day Ukraine, archaeologists discovered the remains of these incredible structures. With no trees available on the frozen steppes, your ancestors built their homes using the massive bones of the beasts they hunted. Up to 149 individual mammoth bones were interlocked like a massive, terrifying puzzle to create a sturdy dome. They stretched heavy animal hides over the bone frame to block the wind. Inside, the air is thick with smoke and the smell of burning fat. Because wood was virtually non-existent, you burn mammoth bone marrow to keep the fire alive. It burns hot and slow, filling the small space with a heavy, greasy warmth. You are surrounded by your family. You hear the breathing of your tribe. You are safe. Consider how you sleep today. You lie motionless for 8 uninterrupted hours in a quiet, dark room. If an ancient human tried to sleep like that in the dead of the Ice Age, they would never wake up. The cold would quietly slip into their bones, slowing their heart rate until it simply stopped. So how did they sleep? Archaeologist Brian Hayden has extensively studied the role of fire in early human societies. His research on Paleolithic hearths shows that fire was not just a tool for cooking. It was an artificial sun. But a fire requires constant feeding. Your ancestors practiced what is called segmented sleep. The tribe would sleep in shifts. Someone always had to be awake. Someone always had to watch the flames. You sleep for 4 hours, then you wake up to tend the fire, talk in the quiet darkness with the other watchers, and then go back to sleep. The rhythm of your life was dictated by the flickering orange light. The hearth was the gravitational center of the universe. If the fire died, you died. But staying warm was only half the battle. You also had to eat. Winter is a time of starvation. The plants are dead. The berries are gone. The ground is frozen solid. How do you fuel a human body in a frozen wasteland? You eat meat and you eat fat. Lots of it. Researchers like biological anthropologist Michael Richards have conducted nitrogen isotope analysis on the bones of ancient humans. This technique allows scientists to determine exactly what our ancestors were eating based on the chemical signatures left in their skeletons. The results are staggering. The protein levels in ancient human bones from Ice Age Europe were indistinguishable from top-level carnivores like wolves and cave lions. You were a hypercarnivore, but lean meat was not enough. If you only eat lean meat, your body burns more energy digesting it than it receives, leading to a deadly condition called protein poisoning. You needed pure, dense calories. You needed fat. Your ancestors prized the thick layers of blubber on animals like reindeer, wild horses, and mammoths. They cracked open the bones to suck out the rich, buttery marrow. They boiled hooves to extract the grease. Fat was the ultimate currency of the Ice Age. It was the fuel that kept your internal furnace burning. The cold was not the only monster waiting outside your bone hut. The Pleistocene winter was a time of desperate hunger for every creature on the landscape. Massive cave bears, weighing up to 2,000 pounds, competed for the same warm shelters. Cave lions, significantly larger than modern African lions, stalked the snowy plains. When you stepped out to hunt, you were simultaneously the hunter and the hunted. Every shadow in the snow was a potential threat, yet there is a deeper, more hidden layer to winter survival. It was not just about the clothes you wore or the meat you ate. It was about how you treated each other. Penny Spickens, a researcher at the University of York, studies the evolutionary origins of human emotion. Her work reveals a powerful truth about our past. Empathy was our greatest survival tool. In a world where a broken leg meant certain death, early humans did not abandon the weak. The archaeological record is filled with skeletons of individuals who suffered severe injuries or debilitating illnesses, yet lived for years afterward. They lived because someone else chewed their food for them. They lived because someone else carried them. They lived because someone else shared their hard-won calories. In the darkest, coldest days of winter, your tribe was your only safety net. Social cohesion was not a luxury. It was the difference between life and death. If you were selfish, you died. If you were generous, you survived. And here's the counterintuitive twist. We often imagine the Ice Age winter as a time of pure misery, a dark period of simply waiting for the sun to return. But agriculture was a trap that changed our relationship with time. Before farming, winter was an incubator for the human mind. When you are trapped inside a dark, smoky bone hut for months at a time, what do? You cannot hunt. You cannot forage. You have an abundance of free time. You start to think. You start to create. The long, dark winters forced early humans to turn inward. This is when they carved intricate art pieces out of ivory. This is when they created musical instruments like bone flutes. This is when language and storytelling likely exploded in complexity. The cold forced us to sit around the fire and share knowledge. It forced us to imagine worlds beyond the frozen walls of our shelter. Winter did not pause human evolution. It accelerated it. Now, look at your life today. Think about what happens when the days get short and the temperature drops. We retreat. We isolate ourselves in our separate, temperature-controlled boxes. We stare at screens. We order food to our doors. We experience seasonal depression and intense loneliness. We have conquered the physical cold, but we have lost the psychological warmth of the tribe. Your body and your brain were not designed to survive the winter alone. They were not built for isolation. They were designed to survive the winter by pulling closer to the fire. They were designed to survive by pulling closer to each other. We have removed the threat of freezing, but we have also removed the deep, necessary bonds that the cold forced us to forge. You do not need to hunt mammoths to reclaim this, but you do need to remember what winter was actually for. It was not a time to be alone. It was the season of connection. So tomorrow you step outside in the middle of January. You pull your thick winter coat tight against your chest. The freezing wind bites at your exposed face as you hurry across the icy pavement. But this time, you do not just quickly rush into a heated car to be alone. You remember the bone huts. You remember the fire. You remember that for 300,000 years, The cold didn't isolate you. It brought you home.